for
Here we go.
thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys. I appreciate it. This has been a journey of learning for the last 3 years for myself and other coworkers at Peak. And it was nice to kind of do a recap of where we've been and what we've done and how we're doing it. So it's a good reflective exercise for me to pull up all this information together. A little bit about me. I've been involved with Peak Parent Center for about 27 years now, off and on in different roles. Since my son was 2 or 3 years old was the first time I got connected with Peak. And he's the common element in all of these pictures here. His name is Will. My involvement with Peak early on changed the trajectory of our lives and has led to us living in a self-created intentional community. We have 4 to 5 housemates that live with us because they see value in sharing their lives with Will and being a part of his journey. And I love it. Sometimes it's like living in a frat house, and other times it's like having children that you've always wished and dreamed for. So it's been a beautiful experience. I wouldn't exchange it for anything. It's increased the quality of Will's life in ways that I can't even define. 2 of these gentlemen that were originally our housemates in 2019. Will was the gentleman that has the shine shirt on. He was the best man in his wedding last year. And then next weekend, the man with the rip curl t-shirt on, he's going to be one of his groomsmen. So he's looking forward to the bachelor party this weekend. And I'm holding my breath. So Will is an avid thespian. He loves acting. He had a role as Shrek, as you can see there in the center. He loves playing music and singing, and he loves video gaming. Those are some of his interests and talents. So what exactly is a personal network? That's the project that I coordinate at Peak Parent Center, is walking families through the process of building a personal network. And here's the definition that we've pulled together from many of the thought leaders in this industry. But basically, it's a group of people that are personally interested in and intentionally invited to participate with lending their minds and energy towards creating a safe and secure future with, not for, but with a person who has a disability label. These people know what we call the center person well, and they see their gifts and the ways that they can contribute in the community, and they're interested in supporting being a part of that so that they can participate in the community at large. It's not like an Amway meeting where they have to come and they're guilted into participating. It's because there's a common interest and they see value in being a part of what the group is doing. It's definitely makes the difference between living in an isolated disability-centric communities, going from one disability-centric activity to another, to living fully and actively contributing to the community at large. It's a powerful experience for everyone involved. And it's beautiful to see the relationships that happen between the people who become a part of the network. They come to value it and look forward to the friends that they know as a part of the network. Some of the key concepts that have transformed our journey and led to our intentional community was understanding the difference between person-centered and system-centered planning. Peak was instrumental, and I think every parent center is instrumental in helping me identify what I could ask for, how to ask for that, and understanding what the law said around what I was asking for. It helped me find my voice and keep that on the table as discussions were happening when Will was in school, and now advocating for him around employment. It's based on gifts, strengths, and roles. And roles is the key piece that was the real huge transformer for me when I learned about it, and combined with circles of support. And I think that, these are terms that we're all familiar with because we're in the industry, but I'd like to take a minute to explain a little bit more about each one of them. So let's start with taking a guess. What percentage of HCBS outcomes are person-centered? What would you guys say? So the goals that you're setting in your annual planning meetings, what percentage would you guess that they are person-centered? Any takers?
I already know the answer, guys. You gotta put it in the chat. Just
Yeah.
put it in the chat.
And Sherelle's going to tell me what's in the chat because I can't see it while I'm presenting. So take a guess. Okay.
Melissa says 20%.
20, okay. Yeah. Any other ideas? Anne, what do you think?
Well, how are you measuring, or what are you considering HCBS outcomes?
So the goals that are written around a person's service plan and
I'm guessing they're supposed to be very high, but very low, but I don't have a number.
Quenna went 10 or 80.
okay, you're covering all bases. That's really good. Well, it's just 36%. And this is a study that was done in 2023. It's of 140 outcome measurements that are used with these tools listed down here, the National Core Indicators, the Council on Quality Leadership, Personal Outcome Measures, and then HCBS Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers and Systems. Only 36% of the questions that are being asked were person-centered in nature. So I don't know how we're going to get to person-centered planning if we're not asking the questions to evaluate whether or not we're doing that. So I just found that rather shocking and surprising and validating with my frustration around what do we talk about when we pull people together to talk about what the future could look like when it's service providers. So any other thoughts on this? No? Okay. So Beth Mount defines person-centered planning as an ongoing problem-solving process used to help people with disabilities plan for their future. It helps those involved with the focus person or the center person see the total person, their wholeness, and recognize their desires, interests, and then discover completely new ways of thinking about the future of the person. And here's a quick video that some of you may have already seen, but we can take a minute to watch.
Meet Grammarly Go.
And we'll wait for the commercial to be gone. There we go. All right.
If there's supposed to be sound, we can't hear anything. We heard the commercial, but now we don't hear anything.
Okay, you know what? I think it's because when I did the share, it may have been.
Because we heard the commercial.
Huh, okay. Well, and I'm not seeing any of the other pieces as well. So, the joys of technology, right? So
We can always send out the link in the PowerPoint so they can watch too on their own.
just do that instead then. And now I just need to escape out of this. Back to the PowerPoint. So I'll let you guys watch that at a later time. It is by Beth Mount, and I think it's a beautiful way of visually describing what systems can do in partnership with us, and where we kind of get cattywampus with them when we start to live within the parameters of what they offer, instead of looking outside of that and what a person is interested in doing and the people they want to be with. Beth Mount defines person-centered planning as seeing the person, searching for their capacity and gifts, depending on people, families, and direct service workers to build good descriptions and ways to move forward. Gathering folklore, which I thought was interesting that she used the word folklore. I've got a definition of that on the next slide. from people who know that person in the center. And then seeing people in the context of their community, not in the context of their disability or their limitations. And then bringing people together by discovering common experiences. And that's where that nuance of mutual benefit happens within the network as you pull it together. And you guys can take a moment to read the systems-centered planning at a later time. So how strengths, gifts, and talents, as well as interests, lead to social roles and community connections was just an eye-opening experience for me. What I discovered is that the things that we love to do and are good at doing define how we see ourselves and what others see of us. So once we know who we are, we know where to go. Because a lot of times when parents get involved in our project, they have concerns because either their young adult has no friends or they're not involved in going any places other than those disability-centric organizations and activities. Again, this is another link by Planning for Partners for Planning. It features Janet Cleese, who talks about identifying the gifts and strengths of a client that she was working with who loved to draw, and how that led to this young lady, instead of seeing herself as a person who likes to color in a day program, she started seeing herself as an artist. And then that led to the question of, where do artists in our community go? What do artists in our community do? And that led to her starting to participate in those places that are in the community at large where artists go. So in my community, there's one art shop called Jerry's Artorama. That's where the artists shop for their supplies. Then they have an art walk on the first Friday of every month that features local artists' work in the different stores down in Old Town. And then they also have art classes that are offered through the Recreator, through the Recreation Center, and through the university. And Janet talks about how when you start to participate as an artist in your community, then when you enroll in a class and you attend it, instead of being the token person with a disability that's attending and everyone sees your disability first, they've seen you at the local coffee shop that puts up local artists' work. They've seen you at the art walk, and they bumped into you at the art store. And so you start to be seen as an artist who happens to have a disability. And that was just a hugely transformative aha experience for me, and led to me asking, what are the things that people in my community do who consider themselves to be musicians, who consider themselves to be foodies, who consider themselves to be actors or thespians or experts on theater. And it led to places for us to look for ways that my son could participate. So I don't know if you guys see the powerful impact of looking at things from that vantage point, instead of saying, oh, well, that's so good that you like to color, and then trying to build on it from an activity perspective instead of an identity or a role. Does that hit any of you guys in a way that, like, oh, wow, that's interesting?
Yeah, and it kind of aligns with the conversation Melissa and I had today on just so you see her saying yes. So it definitely does, just kind of the way that you look at things. So yeah, it's powerful. Thanks, Sami.
Yeah. So like I said, what that does then is when we use gifts to identify places for participation in the community, we then know where to go. And I remember when I first learned about circles of support. I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with this because it's been around for 4 decades. I learned about it at a peak inclusion conference when Will was about 5 years old. And what I loved about it is the instructor asked the audience, which circle do you think is the most important? And I would say 80% of the room said circle of intimacy. As a parent, We're very concerned, what's going to happen to my child after I'm gone? Who's going to be intimately involved in their lives and know that they have holes in their socks and want to be their friend and listen to what they're worried about and help and coach them through the journey of their own lives, right? And the speaker came back around and said, yes, that is an important circle, but it's not the most important. The most important circle is circle of participation, because it's by going to the places that we love to go that we meet people that we enjoy spending time with, who become intimately involved in our lives. And she asked the audience then, you know, where did you meet your best friend, your significant other, someone that you care for deeply? And, you know, the places were varied. Most of them were work and school, which again is another, you know, barrier for young adults with disabilities. We've got the unemployment rate that's, you know, 80 to 90%. And we also have limited secondary education opportunities available. And so I think that that really impacts the ability for a young adult to participate in the community at large, other than in group herds with a couple of people who are on their phones most of the time, taking them to, you know, have a community experience at Walmart for a few hours when they've got $5 extra. So by being intentional about where we're participating based on our roles and identities, we can customize what we're asking service providers to do with our kids and have that create meaningful relationships that can lead to relationships that are intimate. Not intimate sexually, I mean, they can be, but intimate as far as like a best friend. Any questions around that? I can't see anybody. So
Nope, I don't, nope, no questions and no one in the chat, so we're good.
okay, great. So just to summarize, our gifts and strengths lead to our roles and identity, which then leads to places to participate in the community, which results in relationships and friendships. And so my energy as a mom and as a coach with other parents is to help them identify those gifts and look for those places that young adults can participate, because I know that that will really lead to relationships and friendships. So how does a PTI implement personal networks when you have limited staffing? So I would recommend that you walk through these exercises yourself. I'm going to explain what those are in the next few slides. That you take some time to assess your staff's current understanding and culture around these core values. A lot of times person-centered, circles of support, inclusion are terms that are thrown around really loosely, and we think we're all saying the same thing, when in reality we all have very different definitions of what that means and what that looks like. So it's important to get a common understanding of what your organization is promoting and saying that those things mean. It also helped us to discuss and define how each aspect would look in our work and to know our why. And then a really creative and quite powerful way of identifying how to move forward is to do a path planning session with your own center. I think it's great when we say, you know, this would be a great tool for you to use within your family to do a path planning process. It would be even better if we could say, and we've done it too as an organization. It's a very powerful tool. So the exercises that I would have you review would be looking at the gifts, strengths, and talents of each person on your staff. And this is a document, so I can open that up for you to see. Sherelle, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is from Plan Network. We partner with them in our project, and we look at gifts of the head, heart, hands, and history. And I love the fact that they all start with H, right? Because a lot of times our world, especially in America, focuses on the gifts that are of contribution versus the presence that we bring to relationships and the way that we impact others around us just simply by being in the room. So and it also kind of helps to make it a little more concrete and keeps conversations away from, well, Melissa, you always just have great hairstyles and you're a happy person. I love spending time with you. It helps us get down to the real core pieces of this person and what they're gifted at, that they're passionate around justice, that they're a hard worker. These would be things that I would say about Melissa, and that she's very creative and thinks outside the box well. So it's great to sit down and think about these things for yourself, and then share them with your coworkers as a way of getting to know each other better. And I think it's also something that evolves over time. This is not a document that you do once and then you're done. You'll discover more that you can put on that over time, and it leads to a great way of sharing who you are in a pretty succinct way with people who are joining your network kind of right at the beginning. It helps them get a thumbnail sketch of who you are as a person, and it's all strengths-based, so it's very comfortable. Any questions about this? No? Okay. The next one is the roles and identities. And this is, again, that video that was from Janet Cleese and Partners for Planning. This is a document that they ended up sharing with me. And it talks a lot about, initially what they talked about was social role valorization. And that's the research term that Wolf Wolfsenberg came up with back in the early 70s. And he talked about society's perception of value. Our society values people that are intelligent, beautiful, wealthy, educated, young. They have material objects and possessions. Our society does not value the opposite of those things. And yet when we think of a person with a disability label, a lot of times we see that they're landing on this right-hand side of this document, especially as they get older. When they're young, they're cute. When they start getting older, it's not so cute anymore. What this lens of interpreting or seeing value in another person does is it leads to that person losing control over their lives, having decisions made for them, and mass management. So they're tracked into certain classes, they're tracked into certain service levels, they're tracked into certain programs, and individualization goes out the door. I think the most powerful and detrimental aspect of this way of looking and assessing others is that it leads to an impoverishment of experiences. So the next barrier that we kind of run into with young adults is when we say, what do you want to do? They don't know, because they've never had the opportunity to dream. They've never been told what they do well. And so they can't see themselves outside of the box that they live in. So this document has been a really great tool for us to use with young adults and with parents. I've gone ahead and filled in some examples of the positive and negative roles that we typically see in these different domains that were referred to in the original research. But as you can see, there's plenty of them on there that have nothing to do with ability level. I can be a sister and still have a disability. I can be a comedian and still have a disability, right? I can be a tenant. I can be a creative thinker. I can be a yellow canary, meaning that, I'm the one that kind of reads the emotional regulation of the room. And when I start to struggle, that's an indicator that everyone in the room could be struggling. A lot of times we see that, some of the plans that are created for young adults include the leisure and culture roles, like they're a fan of the Broncos, or, they love flowers and bumblebees, or that, they love listening to music and going to movies. But starting to see those as identities is really transformative for them. The other piece that is so good is for a parent to go through here and start to identify the roles that they're carrying for their young adult. And it opens up the conversation for them to start learning how to, like Shelley Nessman from Plan says, how to hold those roles in a different way. We're not asking people to let go and just go, I hope it works. We're asking them to learn how to hold it in a different way. And so if you are the financial planner for your young adult, how could you hold that in a different way going forward? You're not going to maybe hand over their whole entire Social Security check, but could you let, would it work to maybe start with $5 a week and see how they do with that, so that you can slowly start to transition that. And as you look at your network, are there people that are in that network that would be willing to take that one role on? Because as a parent, many times I've thought, you can't pay someone enough to do what I do, right? And that is the truth. There isn't enough money in the world to pay for the level of support and care that we want for our children, regardless of whether or not they have a disability or not. But when we start looking at the different roles that we're carrying for them, we can start with them first and say, hey, is this something that maybe I need to release to my young adult so they can start practicing how to answer questions during medical appointments? Or, hey, is this a role that I can release to my young adult, that they start figuring out transportation to the things that they're wanting to go to, and then run that by me once they develop a plan. So it gives a nice, safe way of articulating those responsibilities to others while the parent is still here, so that we still are available as a resource, that questions can be asked to, that information can be shared from, and it's happening in real time, and not during a time while my young adult is grieving the loss of me in their life, and everybody new is stepping in and taking control of all these pieces that I held. So that's what I love about this document, and the way that it helps parents see. And it can be kind of overwhelming to see how many roles they carry, but I love to think about it in the sense of, who do they want to outsource or delegate those responsibilities to? And it also helps young adults look at those roles that they've been assigned that maybe aren't quite accurate. So maybe they've always been seen as the troublemaker. And so we can start looking at that as saying, they're a person that advocates for their needs real well, and so it helps us to reframe those. Any questions about that?
I don't have any in the chat, but I wanted to let you know that we have 10 minutes left.
Gotcha. So again, circles of support is our next piece. And again, we've gone over that. Here's a document that you can look at that explains each one of those circles in depth for families to see and know and understand. And again, it's very powerful. So culture is not a thing. It's not something an organization has or doesn't have. It's something an organization is. And so these are three core culture values that I have known Peak to have over time. That they're person-centered, they're strengths-based, and they're community-based. And so what I would like to end with today is maybe encouraging you all to take the time to do an organizational assessment and ask yourself the following questions. How are we seeing the uniqueness of the person that we're working with? What are the ways that we're doing that? How are we searching for and identifying their capacities and gifts? Are we supporting a person's own understanding of their gifts and capacities, or are we only getting that from the people around them? Who are we depending on to build good descriptions of the person that we're working with and how they want to move forward? And then the gathering folklore. Folklore is those traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community or a person. So how are we gathering folklore about the person that we're working with? Are we asking them again, or just those around them? And then where are we seeing the people we work with in the context of their own community? And how are we bringing people together to discover common experiences? So I've got more slides, but I can do that next time that we get together. We can finish up. If you want to take time to, between now and next month, to maybe look at these things, then the next time that we get together, I can go ahead and go over how we implemented these in our project and share with you what's working and the barriers that we've run into. I know when I was at the Region 4 training back in April, you guys had some really great questions around cultural barriers. And so I've spent some time looking for options around that. So any questions or thoughts on what I've shared so far?
Sammy, I like the organizational assessment piece that you just showed, and I like want to stress that even thinking about it in like a non-disability way, like people in your organization, how are you applying those to the people that are there now, whether they have a disability or not? Because how you treat people now is also going to be a reflection on how you treat others, regardless of their disability or not. So when you look at that organizational perspective and assessment, how are you want to look at everyone in your organization and how we're treating people and understanding their gifts and what they bring to the table and their culture and their stories. So I thought that was really powerful. We always move to this, oh, this person, and I do that myself. Oh, this person makes me so angry. Then I'm like, okay, but what do they bring to the table? What are, how do I focus my energy elsewhere? So something that I am constantly working on.
Right. And it comes in different packages, right? So I think that's where taking a step back and seeing how that persistence maybe around a certain ideology or philosophy, or that persistence around managing the number of pencils you have. those are gifts presenting themselves in kind of a disguised way, right? Yeah. And so we need to pay attention to those and help ourselves and them see them in ways that are positive and how they bring a contribution to our community. We have one housemate that is I think that traditionally he would be referred to as highly sensitive. And so it's great for us to learn how to support and accommodate that and see the giftedness in it in our community here, so that we can listen to the things that are coming up, because he's usually the one that's seeing something that's coming up down the road early on. And so it's been a learning experience for us to practice it as a community with each other.
Yeah. Awesome. Jen and Sasheen, I know you guys came in late, but looking at kind of some of the worksheets, is that something that is, we were trying to find like tools that were practical for organizations to use, even if they don't have the funding, or is that something that you see like, oh, that could be helpful, or we could implement some of these with our families? I see Sasheen.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Where do you guys see the barriers to implementing stuff like this?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Where do you see the barriers to implementing stuff like this?
I mean, I don't know if I necessarily can really think any. The one I think of is just understanding it, but I think that just comes to us on really explaining it at a level that they can understand, which just kind of goes with our work. But yeah.
I know Sasheen says she's in listen only mode, so she's not gonna not gonna have an answer. But Sami, thank you. This is a great presentation. Even I knew about the project and still learned some stuff. So always great to have you, and looking forward to kind of connecting and talking about what we can do next month. Jen and Sasheen,